You're listening to the Love Your Neighbor podcast.
Hey, welcome and thanks for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast. We're so thankful that you joined us and you found us whether on Facebook or Spotify. We're glad you're with us. Also want to shout out and give a huge thank you to the Brandon Valley Area Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this season of the Links podcast. Thank you for believing in the vision of this podcast to build community one conversation at a time. To all of the businesses in Brandon that are part of the chamber, thank you so much for believing in us and making this possible. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Amanda Starzl. Amanda, welcome to the Links podcast.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is we've been waiting to have you on here. The chamber is sponsoring, but you've actually gotten involved and played a big part in the chamber.
Yeah.
Can you kind of tell those of us maybe that don't know about the chamber what the chamber does?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of my background with the chamber and how I got connected. I moved into Brandon about 4 years ago. Professionally, I work as a mortgage lender. So clearly a big part of building my business is building relationships and getting to know people. And in moving here, I didn't know a single soul. But from my past experience, I knew that connecting with the chamber was a very important way of getting connected to the community and meeting people. And so literally one of the very first phone calls I made when I moved here was calling the chamber. And I had a great conversation with them. They pointed me in the right direction to get connected. And from that point on, I've been involved with the chamber. And so essentially I've been able to serve, started with one of their committees, but I had the opportunity to serve on their board. And I've been doing that the last 3 years. Last year, I served as the chamber chair on the board, and this year, past chair. But the chamber is, if you're not familiar with it, it's the best resource in our community to get exposure for businesses. So for those businesses that are not members, I would highly recommend reaching out to the chamber and at least having a conversation. Because it's such a resource and it's such an asset, in growing your business, getting exposure, and just like I said, building relationships.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's maybe actually where we met for the first time.
Yes.
It was at a mixer event.
Yes, it was.
And you were new and I was new, and we were, I was in a business, but working in the nonprofit world, it was just a great way to meet a lot of people and make connections. I know there's a lot of things going on with the chamber.
Yes.
I think probably the best way is the website, and then getting on. I know I receive email updates as part of the chamber of all the different events going on throughout anything that specifically that you'd want to highlight or.
There's, like you said, there are so many opportunities, but the one that, and maybe I'm a little biased in feeling this way about it, but the one event that really stands out as a great way to connect and also get exposure is the On the Menu luncheon. It's a networking opportunity that we host every month. We've been doing it for the last 3 years. Every month we bring in a speaker. We provide opportunities for businesses to spotlight their businesses at this event. And then we also just provide opportunities for people to network with each other, whoever they're sitting with. So, we have anywhere from 30 people to 100 people attending on a monthly basis. It really depends on who the speaker is. But it's such a great opportunity to meet people and get to know the businesses better in our community.
You guys have had some pretty big name guests, haven't you?
Yes. Christy Noem.
I've heard of her, yes.
Yes. If you haven't, you've been living under a rock. Paul Tenhaken. Locally, we have Jared Larson in once a year to talk about our schools. We've had the chief of police. We try to bring in a variety. We don't want to just focus on politics or the government. We try to spice it up and bring in fun speakers as well. And so just in January, we brought in a speaker who really spoke about health and nutrition and how to prioritize that in your life. So yes, it's like you said, there's emails, but there's Facebook posts. There's if you're a member of the chamber, there's no way you're going to miss out on hearing about this.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Yeah, I've been to several of those, and it's been just cool to see you not only drawing people into the community, into the Brandon business community, but also then adding value through, several ones that I went to, I was like, wow, you learn a lot and you understand, things about community and business world that you might not understand. So it's really a cool event. Tell me a little bit about your story. So we've talked about what you do. How did you come to Brandon? Tell us a little bit about your story and what, why you chose Brandon.
Sure.
I guess you could have probably gone a lot of places.
Well, not if I didn't want to marry my husband. So so in that regard, I didn't have a choice. But
so he wasn't, he was already here.
He was here. So
Gotcha.
yes. So 4.5 years ago, I grew up in Minnesota. I was a Minnesota girl, loved it there. And 4.5 years ago, my kids and I relocated here because of my husband. So we had been dating long distance for a couple of years, actually. And he was grounded here. I knew that. And he, I guess you could say, wooed me over the state lines and brought me to Brandon. And it's just been, so that's why we ultimately chose it. But I will honestly say, for as nervous as I was about relocating my kids to a new school district and making that change, it has been just phenomenal to see how our family has connected and our kids have gotten engaged in the schools and sports. And so it's just been wonderful.
So you've embraced this along with your family as your new home. Mm-hmm. Cool. So your husband, I mean, he's like long-term Brandon resident. I don't know. I know Jim a little bit, but I don't know his story.
Not originally from Brandon.
Okay.
But he grew up close by. Edgerton is where he's from originally. Okay. But he's been in the Sioux Falls area since college. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, cool. Well, that's great. Your kids now involved. What are their ages? Are they involved in? You said sports. I mean.
Yes. So we have 6 children between the two of us. We're a blended family. I have 4. He has 2. So we have 6 children ranging from ages 9 up to 18. So our oldest is a senior and our youngest is a 3rd grader over at Fred Assam. And so, they're we have them spread out all over the place. So that was, when we moved here, that was a little bit getting used to having the school spread out a little bit. But so we're busy.
Cool. I bet. I have 2 at our house, and that's plenty for me. So that's great. What have you after getting? Obviously, you got involved right away. I mean, that was seems like that was something you were committed to early on, was getting in a part. But what have you come to learn to love and appreciate about our community of Brandon? What on a good day? What are you like? Well, I'm glad I chose here. What's been the best about being here?
Well, ultimately, I mean, what stands out as what has really been the best fit for our family has been the school systems. I mean, there's no doubt with 6 kids, 4 of my own in the schools here, I have been so impressed by the school district and how the teachers and the sports, the coaches, just especially as new kids coming in from out of state. I mean, they just immediately made you feel connected and made you feel comfortable. And so that's been, I mean, by far one of the best features of moving to Brandon is the school district. It speaks for itself. And, personally, it is hard. It's hard moving into a community where you're new and you don't know anyone, especially when a lot of the people that live in Brandon have been here. They've been here their whole lives. But, if you make an effort to get engaged, that's something I've learned through my life experiences. If you take that first step and make an effort to get connected, whether it's at the chamber or at church or something, man, the people here have just embraced our family.
That's great. Yeah, I think you've hit something there. I think as someone, having been through a similar experience, being new to town, like there is kind of that, like, I don't know that I belong, but moving through that tension, if you want to call it that, of saying, hey, I'm new, but just kind of, what do they, I mean, you just kind of wash your face and blow through it. I mean, I think that's so good. And making a difference, you're obviously gotten involved right away. Thank you for serving.
It's been my pleasure.
Obviously, I noticed, we've talked about the buying local, business locals, to see that in just this last year, that grow. I think we were over, was it $4.1 million in sales tax?
Yes, that sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, we just blew it out of the water this year. So
that's
it's
awesome.
Phenomenal.
It takes all of us, and really, as the chamber seeking to drive local business, that really makes a difference because those sales tax dollars really stay in Brandon to help us, really pay for the things that we all share, the streets, the water, those things that we all are a part of. That drives that. And so I think, what would you say to somebody that's maybe, again, all over the place, but what are some simple ways or some simple on-ramps to buy local? What have you found, with traveling around? What are some ways to really invest, I guess, locally?
No, that's a good question. We, living in Brandon, we have a unique, we're in a unique situation in that we're so close to Sioux Falls. And so many of our of the people that live in our community travel to Sioux Falls to work, so they're not here during the day. And so we can potentially lose that business in Brandon, not have the lunch crowd or what have you. But, and I'm one of them. I have to drive to Sioux Falls for work, but I make an intentional effort to be involved in Brandon because that's where our family lives, and so it's not always reasonable to think that we can give 100% of our business to Brandon businesses. But we really are intentional about, we get that. We get that, money just doesn't grow on trees here. If we want to invest in our community, it takes literally our entire community to make an effort to, support our businesses here and and that involves shopping at Sunshine or having coffee at Scooters or making sure you get your gas at the gas stations. We give the local holiday station a lot of money. Let's put it that way.
Right.
We stop there many times a day. But
I think that's a simple thing. I've experienced that as well because obviously a large expenditure is our gasoline. I mean, it only takes some small tweaks.
Yes.
To just always have that mindset of, hey, I'm going to make sure I fill up. When I'm in Brandon. And we have a number of opportunities to do that. But I think that's a simple way to really. You can always get gas in Brandon. So, well, cool. Well, Amanda, community. You mentioned growing up in Minnesota. I'm a North Dakota kid. I'm a transplant too. So. What have you, over the course of your life, what does community mean to you? You obviously have experienced that here in Brandon, but what is community? How would you teach it to your third grader? How do you explain what community is?
Probably no surprise to you, I've always been a very social person, and so friends have always meant a lot to me growing up, in elementary into junior high and high school. I've always just enjoyed having a lot of friends. But as I've gotten older, what's become more important to me isn't the amount of friends I have. It's the true, authentic relationships that I have built along the way. And when I think about community, what really comes to my mind is, the word community is building those authentic relationships and connections, And ultimately, when I think of Brandon, I think Brandon is a very strong example of what a community should be. Just in the last few years with everything that's happened, our community just truly knows how to rally around each other and support each other. And it's been really, even though there's been a lot of hard times, I've been so thankful that we're here. I never really thought I'd feel that way. I really thought I'd miss Minnesota so much because that was where my heart was at. But I've been so thankful to be here, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I know I can speak on behalf of a lot of people in Brandon. We're glad that you're here. And thank you for really getting involved and serving. I think that's a great impulse. And I want to thank you on behalf of, being a citizen. Thank you for serving in our chamber. Thank you for getting involved. And we're definitely glad you and your family are here.
Well, thank you. I can honestly say it's been a pleasure and we're honored to be here. So. All
right. Well, thanks, Amanda, and we'll see you around maybe at the gas station.
Yes, okay. I'm sure we'll run into you there.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast. The purpose of the Love Your Neighbor podcast is to build community one conversation at a time. You can help us build that community by sharing the podcast on your social media channels and rating our podcast on whatever platform you're listening from. Another way is to let us know of any neighbors who have a story. Go Lynx!